Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So a little update as we continue on the adventure of getting the AC system working on the Corrado. Yes, the Corrado project has taken an interesting turn. So we took the condenser that was in the car down to the AC place, and it not only has one leak, it has several. So it looks like it was just manufactured poorly and the welds didn't hold in the various places that it was welded, and it's just basically come apart. So it's junk. The other one that I had, which was another older core, it was in the car for 200,000 miles, and I thought I would replace it, but I kept it around just in case. That one appears to hold pressure, but it's in really bad shape. The fins are all bent. It's just bad. So the AC place is gonna be doing some custom work for us. They're gonna take the end tanks of the newer one that I had bought, cutting them off and welding them onto a brand new core. And he says that basically he can make me a brand new condenser, and it will cost less than $250 to have him do this. So I'm very excited about that, and if this works out, then I will share the contact information for this AC service place in San Diego, because a lot of other Corrado people need condensers, and if they're willing to ship, then this might be a good source, since it hasn't been made in a number of years and all of the part suppliers are now completely out of them. I had shared a couple of videos ago the part number from AutoZone. They had a few more condensers left. They're gone now. They're done. You all jumped on them. They're gone. There are no more brand new condensers left in the world, as far as I can tell. Not even on VW Classic parts. So yeah. Whoever snagged it, nice job. I have been able to find a very reputable air conditioning service place that actually does custom work, and they are going to build me a brand new AC condenser for the Corrado. Since mine is no longer made, hasn't been made in years and years. The one that I got new in the box several years ago and just kept in storage apparently was damaged or defective to begin with, because it leaked from several places as soon as I installed it. So that one's no good, and that's just a bummer. But they're going to use it as a template to build a new one. So they're going to take exact size core, put the end tanks on it, and for less than $250 I will have a brand new AC condenser for the Corrado. Now if it all works out, then I will go ahead and share information about how to get in touch with this radiator and air conditioning place, and they can build you one for yours if you are in the same shape as needing a new AC condenser. So for the moment, they're working on it. They actually said it'll be done tomorrow. So I'll be able to get back into it this week, and potentially by the end of this week we could have a fully functioning air conditioning system in the Corrado. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll have that back tomorrow, and we'll get it on the car, and we'll see how it goes. But it's coming along, and I'm very excited about the progress there. As soon as I have that back in my hot little hands, I will update this and we will continue on with the work. Alright, back with the Corrado project. So I've just gotten word from Eskimo Radiator that my custom-made condenser for the Corrado is ready. So we're going to go pick that up, and I think we've got a good afternoon. We can get that installed in the Corrado, get her back together, and I don't know, maybe there'll be time to test it all and get some refrigerant in there. I don't know, we'll see. But let's go get that condenser and see how it turned out. Okay, and here we have it. Our brand new custom made condenser. Now what they did is they essentially took this weird bend off of the original one, put a brand new fitting on it with new threads, so we wouldn't risk damaging the receiver dryer, which I've had issues with. They welded on a custom fitting there. I'm a little concerned about the pinch right there. that it's going to get enough flow. But they assured me that they have flow tested it, and it works. So the condenser is 2 inches shorter on this end than the factory Corrado condenser, but since nobody makes a core of that size anymore, this is the closest they could do. But all the other brackets we can pull off of the old condenser and mount the brackets where they need to go, and we should be up and running this weekend. I am waiting for a new receiver dryer. I could try to use the one that I botched on the last one, but I think I'm just going to start with new threads, new receiver driver. The thing's only 18 bucks, so I'll put that on. But I'm very happy that we have something that we can work with, and so we'll continue this tomorrow. All right. So we've got our custom-made radiator core, and I'm sorry, AC condenser core ready to go in the Corrado project here. And since I've already done a step-by-step video of putting the front end of the Corrado together, if you haven't seen me do that, I'm going to have you go ahead and tune into that one. I'm only going to film some of the particulars of putting in this condenser because it is custom. It is a little bit different than the factory size. So we're going to see what we can do to make it work inside here. Might have to make a few modifications. And for those of you who have a condenser that's been broken and you need to replace it, this may be an option for you to be able to get working AC on your Corrado before. So I'm just going to film a few parts and see how that goes, and then we'll just see how it goes. And then after getting this in, then I'm just going to go ahead and put the front end of the Corrado back together, and we'll just fast forward on that in the build because you've seen it already. But for now, let's get to it. And like magic, the front end is apart again. That's because I didn't bolt anything together when I just stuck it under the car cover while I was doing this work. And yeah, this was a brand new radiator a couple of years ago. It's a factory Denso one, so it's got a little bit of, you know, typical country living crud stuck in it from, well, living in the country like I do, or at least as country as you get in San Diego. So, okay, everything's looking pretty good. I got new O-rings on both ends here. And we should, if everything is hunky-dory, we should be able to slide in our new condenser here and have it fit. Now I do see, since I did hit some rust treatment, I did hit this with rust treatment earlier, but I did not follow up with paint yet. I'm going to hit this with a little bit of paint before we do this and just cover up any corrosion, make sure that that's not going to come back and bite us later. And yeah, we'll go ahead and do that before we get too far. So just, again, the rust treatment that I used is Permatex. This is just Rust-Oleum spray paint. Really, it's nothing special here. It does have some rust inhibiting qualities to it. Just a few spots in here that I want to make sure that are as protected as possible before I seal this up and don't see it again for a while, Lord willing. Alright, we should be pretty good. And the spots that I touched up last time are looking good, so I think we're good to go there. And, you know, as a matter of fact, as long as I have this out, the very important piece that holds in our chin spoiler and a bumper underneath, I'm just going to hit that with a little bit of touch-up paint. By the time we go to install it, it'll be dry. So I'm just going to hit it a little bit over here off to the side so I don't get any black on the lustrous red original paint with 200,000 miles. Okay, it's not that great looking, but at least I don't want to make it any worse. Okay, so that's going to sit off to the side, and by the time we need to put that on in about an hour, that will be dry and ready to go. In the meantime, let's take a look at this. Now there are a few intermediate pieces that go on underneath to make it sit snug without rattling. And again, if you've tuned in before to one of my projects, you know I am a big fan of the envelope system. So not quite the envelope system of Dave Ramsey, but I've got all the parts in their own individual bags, and almost all of them are labeled properly. The ones that aren't, I can figure out what they are, but just to keep everything together. So this is what we need first, is our condenser bottom. It's got a couple of little pieces that keep it snug and keep it from rattling around. So I'm going to go ahead and pop those on, and we will hopefully have this condenser in place, and hopefully it's not going to give us any drama with how it wants to sit in its place. You know, that's always an interesting factor. Now you can either try to stick it on the bottom of the thing and hope that they stay in place, or you can just very gently lay them where they're going to go. I'm going to do that. It's going to be way less of a headache to have them sit on top. All right, let's see if things match up. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to grab a little oil. Again, I'm not taking any chances with this. I want to put a little bit of lubricating oil on these fittings so that they thread in nicely without giving me any complaints, because I don't want to strip anything else having come this far. Alright, so we are just about there. Just a few more turns. And we're just about tight. Okay. Tighten down. Now before I put all the rest of this back together, I'm going to go ahead and grab the vacuum equipment, put it under vacuum, test the system for vacuum, and that'll be test number 1. Of course, test number 2 is pressure. And it was having an issue with pressure before where it was leaking. My own fault for cross-threading the AC receiver dryer, but also the condenser that I had before was leaking in several spots, so it had a lot of issues. But now it should work. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that equipment. We'll plug it in, let it run, and see how it goes. Now it's worth mentioning before we go on to this next part that these tools are something that anybody can buy at Harbor Freight Tools. However, depending on where you live, it may be illegal for you to perform certain procedures with these tools unless you have proper air conditioning certification. Now, I'm in California, where absolutely everything fun is illegal. So, that definitely includes air conditioning service. But there are things you can do that are legal. So let's walk through this. I've rebuilt this air conditioning system, and what we have is all new components. I do have the ability to legally use this manifold system and the vacuum pump down below, and I can run that and put the whole system under vacuum and test it legally. After I test it, if I wanted to, I could indeed, I'm just going to focus in on these gauges here. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and, extreme close-up. I could go ahead and use one of the off-the-shelf refill systems that they have at most auto parts places. That would be completely legal for me to do. What I could not do is use these gauges and overfill it and vent to atmosphere if I put too much stuff into the system. That would be illegal. So if I were going to do the filling part myself, using parts that are available at your typical auto parts store like AutoZone, then I could legally use these. I could fill it up and check the pressures and check the temperatures and get the system working the way it needs to work. Now that would be guesswork, wouldn't be exact because I would not be using a scale, although I guess I could if I went out and got a hold of the scale. But since my friend has that stuff, I'm going to go ahead and use him to do that. But for this part, I'm going to go ahead and test vacuum. So we're going to zoom in on the vacuum here, and we're going to put the system under vacuum. It's going to get noisy, and let's see what happens. So, all right, now let's turn on the vacuum pump, and I'm going to open the vacuum side here, or the low pressure side. We're going to put it under vacuum, and I'm going to let the vacuum pump run for a while, and that will pull all the moisture out of the system that is in there from me having it open for the brief period of time that it was open. And even though I did cap it off when I took everything out, we're going to vacuum out all the moisture, because moisture plus AC compressor is bad. So we'll run it for about 45 minutes under vacuum, and then I will turn off the vacuum pump, which is happily running right down there. I don't remember how much it was. It was not very much, but it was Harbor Freight Tools. It was pretty cheap. Highly recommend it if you're going to do any sort of work like this. It's also handy for testing vacuum in an intake manifold system, but we're going to go ahead and let that run, and we will come back to it in about 45 minutes, turn off the vacuum pump, and see if it holds vacuum. And if it does, then we're in really good shape. Alright, we've had the vacuum pump running for 50 minutes. I let it run longer. So we're going to go ahead and stop the pump and see if it holds vacuum. So we'll do this and close the valve. Turn it off. I don't see any rapid movement, but I do see movement. I do see movement of the needle, so that is not making me happy. It is not holding a complete vacuum. So now that means I need to revisit some components. Put it under vacuum real quick again, and I'm going to listen to see if I can hear a leak somewhere in this system. So we'll go ahead and turn the vacuum on again. Open that back up. Seal it. Turn it off. And let me give a listen. Don't hear a major leak somewhere, so I'm going to try something else just to make sure it's not the Schrader valve connections. Again, we're going to keep that sealed. I'm going to go ahead and remove the high side gauge from the system. Seal that. Just eliminating possibilities here. Okay, so again, I'm going to put it under vacuum real quick. We've established vacuum. This one's not in the system anymore. This should not be. It should just be the one side. Go ahead and lock it down. Turn this off and let's see. Aha! I don't see any movement of the needle. So it may have just been the connection on here. I'll keep an eye on it again, just watching that to see if we have any movement of the needle. I'm going to go ahead and time it. So we're just going to put a 20-minute timer on and see if it continues to hold vacuum without that needle creeping on us. If it does, then it should be good to go. So just going to come back in a little bit and see if that needle has crept. Okay, just a minor update on this. I was finding that as soon as I disconnected the vacuum pump and released the other manifold side, it was not holding 30 I don't know what the measure of is, 30 inches of vacuum, but it would settle at 20 inches of vacuum here and hold there on 20. So we're measuring from 20, just going to see if it holds 20 inches of vacuum over a period of time. Alright, it's been 20 minutes. Let's see what we got. And it is holding rock steady at 20 inches of vacuum. So that is a good sign. That is test number 1 succeeded. So it's holding vacuum for 20 minutes, which is great. That means we can move to reassembly, and then we can move to the pressure test, which involves actually putting refrigerant in to see if it works and it holds. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. I started putting the front end back together, but since we've already been through that process in a previous video, I am going to use the magic method and say, alright, so that took a little bit more than one Thanos snap to bring this back to life, but we've got her all back together, and so she passed a vacuum test. which tells us part of the story. The other part of the story is to find out whether or not she'll actually hold pressure in the system. So to do that, I'm going to phone a friend, going to bring in somebody who's got the actual equipment and licensing to do that sort of AC work. In the meantime, I'm going to enjoy having her back together. I discovered a couple of other weird little things on a test drive just a little while ago, and that is I had installed the 160 mile an hour speedometer, if you remember from a previous episode here. Well, it turns out that 160 mile an hour speedometer does not like the vehicle speed sensor that the automatic transmission has. It's not even close. They're about 15 mile an hour difference from actual speed. And because it was such a strange signal that it was getting, it triggered limp mode in the automatic transmission once more. So I'm going to have to go in with the VCDS again and erase the fault codes from the transmission, put the 140 mile an hour speedometer back in for the time being. It's nice to know it's functional, but I'll wait to put that in until I'm actually ready to do the 6-speed swap, and then I'll make sure I've got the right vehicle speed sensor that's going to go along with that and make sure all that wiring is happy. But for right now, I'll just have to live with the factory speedometer. That's okay. It works fine. So I'm going to switch that all back, and actually before I do that, I'm going to just verify that it is the strange signal we're getting from the speedometer that is tripping the error code in the transmission. I'm pretty sure that that's the issue, but to be sure, I'm going to clear the codes, go take it for a test drive, see if it does any weird behavior again, go into lit mode, and then we'll take it from there. But pretty much going to have to take out the cluster anyway, because one of the cluster backlights has chosen this moment in time to stop working. It's possible that I bumped it while I was installing or uninstalling the cluster. It doesn't take a whole lot to break that little tiny connection there, or it could be that the bulb just decided to give up the ghost after 200,000 miles, which is just as likely. Either way, the cluster's got to come out. I've got to swap that speedo, and we're just going to deal with that. So for now, I'm going to bid you sayonara, and we will tune back in the next time once we have swapped the speedos and checked the transmission codes, and hopefully we will get the air conditioning tested. Assuming everything is working properly and everything is sealed up, we should have working air conditioning again, which I'm really excited for, because it's getting hot here in Southern California, and I want to be able to drive this car and not sweat. So thanks for tuning in. Oh, by the way, if you're enjoying this video or the videos like it that I'm making, I have started a Patreon page, so you can go to patreon.com/Brendan Prout, and feel free to sponsor me there. Definitely anything that I can do to help empower and equip other people. I don't make a lot of money as a pastor, unlike some of these crazy megachurch pastors that are, making a lot of money. That's definitely not the case with me. And I don't make a lot of money from my journalistic efforts either, with my writing articles for magazines, and I have yet to make a cent from contributing to books. So that being said, if you would like to sponsor me and become a partner in helping me provide great content, I'd love that. If not, I hope you enjoy it anyway. God bless. See you next time.